I've been shopping at Walmart for pretty much my entire life. Like even when I was a kid, I'd go along with my single mom on trips down to the supercenter like once or twice a week. So as you can imagine, I've seen my fair share of weird and scary stuff go down there, from associates having straight up fistfights in the parking lot to people going to the bathroom in the aisles. But one single incident stands head and shoulders above the rest for me as the most terrifying thing that ever happened to me at a Walmart. Like my mom before me, I too became a mother at quite a young age. It started as a stupid mistake at a college party where a broken condom turned into me having to consider terminating, but I decided to keep the baby and it was the best decision I'd ever made. With my mom's childcare and financial help, I could still continue my studies, and now I have a wonderful young son that I consider an absolute blessing. If I could go back and live my whole life again, I wouldn't change a single thing. Then, in 2016, something happened that rocked the small town I live in. A kid went missing from their elementary school. Teachers saw the kid leaving hand in hand with a woman they recognized as not being the child's mother, but didn't report it, assuming the woman was a nanny or something. Missing posters went up all over town. Vigils were held. The mom made a tearful appearance on TV begging for anyone with information regarding her kid's whereabouts to please come forward, but no one did. A week later, the kid's body was found buried in a shallow grave over in some woodland just outside of town. The entire population went into mourning. It was absolutely horrendous, and I considered just how easily it could have been my kid that just up and disappeared, only to turn up dead a short time later. No arrests were made either. Local sheriffs urged us to report any suspicious behavior to them immediately. I remember they even listed little things that we should consider as suspicious, such as a guy shaving who normally maintained a beard, people parking their cars in garages who normally parked in the street. For all intents and purposes, the killer was still at large, and the whole town was rife with paranoia. A few weeks later, I took my son down to the local Walmart with me to do some shopping. My mom wasn't always available to babysit, and this was back when I couldn't always afford a sitter to look after him, so I had very little choice other than to take him down there with me. This was at a time when he was way too big for the baby seats they have in the shopping carts, so I had to just keep him by my side as I wheeled the cart around to get the grocery shopping done. Now, if there are any parents reading this, you'll know of the pure nightmare that is passing the toy section in a store when you have a young child with you. It's like herding cats. They just run off all wild, and you pretty much have to just wait until their attention span dwindles before you can get them moving again. So I have to pretty much bargain with my son that if he's extra good and follows me around the store like a good boy, we'll go back to the toy section when we're all done and I'll buy him something. He smiles and agrees, and we're back on our way again. About 10 minutes later, after making sure he's been close behind the entire time, I turn around and find that my son is nowhere to be seen. I retrace my steps, calling his name, expecting him to just be around the corner in the previous aisle, having gotten distracted by some colorful label or something, but he's nowhere to be found. I then start wheeling down the center aisle, looking left and right in the hopes that I'd spot him somewhere, but again, nothing. This is about the time I go into full-on panic mode. I remember just how easily it had been for the person that abducted the murdered child to just take them by the hand and walk them to their doom. I had images flashing in my mind of someone leading my son out of the store into the parking lot and into a waiting van where he would be driven off and subjected to God knows what before they ended his young life. I abandon my shopping cart and start basically running around the store asking if everyone had seen a little boy wearing a blue sweater, which is what he was wearing at the time, walking by himself or with another person. Each of them says no, but each also knew why I was asking, and given the recent events that were now haunting the town, the look of panic and fear in their eyes when I asked them if they'd seen my son, well, that was enough to have me almost hysterical with panic. I was in floods of tears by the time I made it over to customer services. I could barely calm myself down to tell them what the situation was, realizing that my inability to properly communicate what the problem was only meant that more valuable time was being wasted when I needed my son found alive and well as quickly as possible. I managed to take a few breaths in the end and get it out that I had lost my son somewhere in the aisles. God bless those folks behind the counter because they knew immediately what to do. Put an announcement over the loudspeakers in the store that if any associate saw a kid in a blue sweater that they were to escort them to customer service as soon as possible. Minutes went by and nothing happened, and I was just convinced my kid was gone for good. I can't even put into words how intense and painful that kind of feeling was, how I felt like a terrible mother and it was just going to be me crying on TV and having journalists banging on my door after countless hours of police interviews, and all that would come with being the parent of a missing child. But then, out of nowhere, I heard a voice cut through the maelstrom of panic in my head. "Hey lady, is this your kid?" I look up and there's this guy holding my son's hand, who is silently sobbing as he walks towards the customer service counter. I've never been so singularly and absolutely relieved in my entire life. Like I felt it wash over me in waves, and I rushed over to my son and took him up in my arms. And we cried together for a few minutes, and I was too happy to even get mad at him for wandering off, which is apparently what he'd done. Wandered off to go looking for the toy section since he was bored, which also happened to be the one place I'd failed to look in my abject panic. Then he'd panicked when he'd gone to try and find me again and gotten lost near the auto parts since we basically never went near that end of the store. I then wildly and profusely thanked the guy who'd found him for bringing him over to the customer service area, even trying to give him all the cash I had in my purse as a reward. Naturally, he refused to take it, saying it was the least he could do, given the recent incident, tragic events that had touched everyone in the worst way possible. I was just a wreck by that point, apologizing to pretty much everyone for making such a scene and being a bad mom. But the workers there were just amazing, even asking if the abandoned cart near the frozen food section was mine, and if I wanted them to bag all the groceries up before helping me take them to my car. I honestly don't know what I would have done without their kindness that day, and I cannot thank them enough for taking care of us. But yeah, that was without a doubt the scariest thing I've ever experienced in a Walmart, and probably in my entire life too. Just typing it all out is giving me the jitters just remembering what an absolutely terrifying experience it was, thinking I'd lost my son like that, especially given that there was an actual child predator on the loose at that time. I'm sorry if this got so long or rambly at points. I'm honestly not much of a writer, I don't think. Just please, if you take away anything at all from this, it's that I'm begging you. Keep an eye on your kids at all times. There are some truly evil people out there in the world. When I was in college, I was out and about with my then boyfriend. We had gone to dinner, then went to Walmart to get some typical college food so we could survive a Sunday in. I was dressed up in a casual, dressy outfit. We decided to split up while we shopped, perhaps to do quicker shopping, but I don't remember the exact reason why. I was wandering the grocery aisles when I noticed a girl who was about my age. In a friendly manner, we casually smiled at each other and continued shopping. It didn't seem weird at first, but I kept noticing her in the same aisles as me, and a big, muscular man was never far behind us. Eventually, I texted my boyfriend and asked where he was and continued shopping. Next thing I knew, the girl approached me and complimented my jacket. I said, "Thanks, Maurice's," and tried to move on. She stopped me and said something along the lines of, "Hey, you look like you're my age and you seem really nice. I just moved here for a new job and a company my friends and I are starting," and tried to ask me questions about where I was from. I was vague and untrusting with what I said, noticing that this wasn't normal. Then she said, "I'm looking for more people like you and me to work for our company. It's kind of a warehouse job and I would love you to be one of our bookkeepers. You should give me your number." I responded, That's nice of you to offer me a job, but I'm not a desk person and I already have a job I really love." And she says, "Oh, well, that's a bummer. Well, I thought we might work well together, you know? Well, would you want to give me your number so we can at least hang out? I'd love to have a friend who can show me around the city." I realized that I wasn't getting out of this situation until my boyfriend showed up or I gave her my number. Eventually, I rattled off a fake number and said, "Hey, I'll catch you later, I gotta go." Then I walked away, praying my boyfriend would be near so we could just get the heck out of there. While I was looking for him and trying to call him, the girl caught up to me and said, "Hey, I tried to call you, but it said the number was out of service." As I tried to come up with a quick excuse and say, "Well, maybe you typed it in wrong," she saw that my iPhone was unlocked and in my hand. She quickly snatched it and called her cell phone. I was so flustered and mad at her that I snatched my phone right back when my boyfriend came around the corner. He instantly recognized that something was up and said that we needed to go. When the girl saw him approach me, she looked so disappointed to see him and stopped trying to interact. We ended up buying nothing and just leaving. And that night, we called our parents and the police. The police said they didn't think it was anything ill-intended, but I was sure that it was probably trafficking, as that's something that's happened around that area before. I was going to switch my phone number because I was so scared. I blocked them and turned off all location access on my phone. I was too scared to go anywhere alone for a while, and I even told my coach, so she was aware. A couple of days later, I got a text from a random number. It was the girl. She sent a picture of my best friend, who was out drinking downtown with some of her other friends. The text said, "I met your best friend. She gave me your number because I told her I was looking for new friends. She showed me a picture of you and I said, what a coincidence, I met her the other day and lost her number when I got a new phone." Now about 2 minutes later, I got a text from my best friend saying, "I gave your number to a girl who wants to make friends around here and is looking for people to join her business. And since I'm moving this week, I thought of you." I freaked out and told her to get away from the girl and not to leave alone with her. I stayed up all night, worried, until my best friend got home. She said she was fine, otherwise I would have gone to pick her up. Now the next day, my best friend apologized and told me to block the number. She said that the girl in her group had tried to ditch her, but she kept showing up at the bus that they were at. The girl was relentless and texted my friend all night, trying to get her to go hang out at her place. My best friend also said that when she asked about the business, the girl wouldn't give her many details other than it was a warehouse somewhere, and that would pay her great and it was in town. If she wanted a tour of it, the girl said that she would take her, and she even said that she would take her there tonight. We never heard from this chick again, and today I was listening to a podcast that mentioned different trafficking tactics, including vague jobs where they would pay you well but needed you to come meet with them for some more information, and a new-to-town girl who desperately needs new friends, things like that. I've been thinking about this all morning, and I'm glad I felt uncomfortable and that my friend didn't go with this girl. But I am mostly mad that the cops ignored my concern and just thought it was nothing, even though it's pretty clear trafficking has occurred in my area and in that Walmart specifically before. I just hope they wrote down the tip that I gave them that night, but I doubt they did. He works at a local Walmart in our small town and actually has a pretty solid thing going on over there. I know Walmart might not seem like the best place to work, but they actually pay their staff pretty well, all things considered. He's been working there for about 10 years now, and I think he's the assistant manager or something like that. I do know that he has seen a lot of weird stuff during his time working at Walmart. Everyone knows about how weird the general public can be, especially at places like Walmart. He's told me a couple of stories that I thought were either really funny or downright creepy. But I think this one has to top them all, because ever since I heard it, I haven't gone back to this Walmart. I don't want to after knowing this. What do I do when I have to buy stuff from Walmart? I drive to the one in the next town over. And I'm not even kidding. You could literally ask anyone that knows me, I actually do it. I know my uncle wasn't trying to scare me when he told me, but I can't unsee this entire event taking place. And I'm pretty sure the only reason he actually told me in the first place is because he thought I was into horror stories or whatever. Maybe I was before this entire thing, but not really anymore. So he started off by telling me that he was trying to climb the corporate ladder at Walmart. He wants to eventually become the manager for this local store in due time. But that means putting in more work and more effort than everyone else for a very long time and hoping that your energy is rewarded. One of the things he regularly had to sacrifice was a normal sleep schedule. They don't force you to work night shift, but one of the best ways to climb that corporate ladder, at least at the local store, was to volunteer for the night shift. I think he made a few dollars more an hour, but it was never worth it. You can't really have a life outside of work when you work from sundown to sunup. This story took place on one of those night shifts a couple of years back. It was a warm summer night, humid as you could imagine, and as you might imagine, there isn't much going on at Walmart late at night. The only reason it's even open is because if it wasn't, there wouldn't be any other stores in our town open at that time. He was the senior-most person on site that night, so if something went wrong, it was his responsibility, and if he couldn't handle it, he would have to call the store manager, which is never a good idea if you want to be on their good side. Well, one of the other workers had just brought in a few shopping carts, but they noticed something weird in the parking lot. There were 7 or 8 vehicles parked on the far side of the parking lot, and it looks like people were doing something. This other worker never specified what that was, but they were concerned enough that they asked my uncle to look into it, and so he did. I remember him telling me that it was really unusual to have people there at such a late time. He said it had to have been anywhere from 3:30 or 5 in the morning. He stepped outside and looked over. They were definitely a couple of people doing something over there, but he couldn't make it out from the store entrance. He started walking toward the crowd of people, and all of a sudden, they all started their cars at the same time. It was like they were waiting for someone to come out and confront them or something. Now, he was out in the middle of this parking lot, and all of those cars started driving toward him. And it wasn't like a casual drive either. He said they must have floored it, going straight for him. At least a few cars, too, so he couldn't jump anywhere. He said that he braced himself for impact and closed his eyes. A few seconds went by before he noticed that the cars had stopped on a dime in front of him. He had no idea what to do at that point. He was just standing there, looking into the dark-tinted windows of these mysterious cars in the Walmart parking lot being driven by who the heck knows who. He said that it was at this point that one of them rolled down the window and threw something at him. It hit him on his leg, and he was trying to determine whether or not he wanted to run back to the store or try to fight for his life. He was really expecting them all to get out of the car to attack him. Thankfully, that attack never came. He stood there for another few seconds before they all sped off into the night. When he looked down to analyze the object that they had thrown at him, he was mortified. It was actually a decapitated head. And even worse, it had no skin. You just have to imagine the way a human head looks without any skin. He threw up and fell to the floor. I'm sure it was in complete shock. He picked up his Walmart radio and screamed for help, and it wasn't very long before he ran back into the store and phoned the police. He spent a lot of time trying to remember license plates and what the vehicles look like. Unfortunately, I don't think it helped the police very much. I'm pretty sure the case is still unsolved to this day, but wait, it gets even scarier than that. Walmart, as you might imagine, has security cameras at their store and in their parking lot. Everyone was sure that the security camera footage would reveal exactly what had happened that night, but it didn't. The entire ordeal happened just out of frame, and this led the police to believe that whoever had done this had very intricate knowledge of Walmart security cameras. Of course, the implication there is that whoever had done this was someone who works or had previously worked at this local Walmart. And it's not like everyone uses the security cameras all the time, so that narrows down the number of potential suspects even further. But it never turned up anything meaningful. The severed head was the weirdest part, apparently. It was male, but its teeth were removed, and I heard DNA analysis with further forensics was unable to pull up any identity from around here or any missing person reports. Last I heard is that they were working with authorities across the border to cross-reference any information. Apparently every single person had a solid alibi with proof, and what makes the entire situation even weirder is the fact that it just seems like such a random crime to commit. I mean, what did they actually accomplish here? It just seems like a lot of planning and effort to do something really stupid, but I'll never understand gang activity or really who was involved. After this incident, rumors spread across town and everyone became a little anxious about going to this Walmart. I'm not the only one that feels this way. For a small border community like ours, something like this happening is a little unthinkable. It really changes the way you view your neighbors and the people that live in your area. Who would do this? And we don't know who. You just feel more anxious and suspicious of anyone that you meet. My family has told me that it seems like there are less people who go to local events like parades and such anymore after this incident, and I can't blame them. But yeah, that was my uncle's horrifying Walmart story that I still regularly think about. The reason I don't ever go to our local Walmart, and probably never will, ever again.
Stay spooked. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more chilling stories.